Today, we will be continuing with our Improving Reading Comprehension series, Episode 2. Our Common Core State Standard is Reading Literature 5.2. Determine a theme of a story, drama, or poem from details in the text, including how characters in a story or drama respond to challenges or how the speaker in a poem reflects upon a topic. Also, we will summarize the text. Our learning objective: by the end of this lesson, students will be able to analyze text and will demonstrate this by constructing a summary of the text. In episode 1, we introduced the standard and the learning objective. And in our explanation of the learning objective to our students, we discussed that we were going to be conducting 3 separate reads of the story. And we completed our first read. We completed a code read of the text. And the purpose of that code read was to get the gist. In episode 2, we will be continuing the process of analyzing the text. And now we will be completing a second read. And during the second read, we will take notes. And at the end of the note-taking process, we will construct a summary. But before we begin our second read, we're going to introduce 4 guiding questions that our students need to write down so that these questions can guide them as they read the story a second time. Question 1, who are the characters? Question 2, what is the setting? Question 3, what is the challenge? And question 4, what is the response? So these are the 4 guiding questions. And those 4 guiding questions will be discussed at the end of every paragraph. Finding a way. Riding the bus to school one morning, Carlos noticed a handwritten sign on the window of a food pantry. The sign read, "Food donations desperately needed." Carlos wondered what he could do to help. So now we're going to go back to those 4 guiding questions, and we're going to guide our children to the responses for these 4 guiding questions. We will guide them in the first paragraph, and we will continue the process. And as the process continues, we will take away some of the scaffolding and allow them to complete the process independently. But to begin, we will model the practice for them. So the question that we are beginning the process with is question 1. Who are the characters? Now, we want to mention to the students that we are only referring to information that is in paragraph 1. And we are writing the information in bullet points, not complete sentences, but fragments. So question 1, who are the characters? So we have a conversation with our students to determine the response. And there is one character being introduced in this paragraph, Carlos. And no other characters. We move on to question number 2. And once again, we are having our students write bullet points and not complete sentences. What is the setting? Is there a setting being introduced to the reader in paragraph 1? Here we can interpret the bus ride as a setting. So I will encourage our students to write down, Carlos is riding the bus. And also, we have a time frame. We know that is morning time. So we can write that down also, morning time. We move on to question number 3. What is the challenge? Is there a challenge being introduced in paragraph 1? And here we do have a challenge. The challenge is that food donations are desperately needed by the food pantry. So we will write down that bullet point. Food donations needed. And we move on to question number 4. What is the response? So is there a response to that challenge in paragraph 1? And at the end, we can guide our students to this final sentence here, where it says, Carlos wondered what he could do to help. So that is an initial response to the problem. He's already wondering how he can help. So we can write that down. Carlos wants, or we can say Carlos wonders how he could help. So now we have answered those 4 questions with paragraph 1. And the process continues. Paragraph 2. At lunch, he told his friends, Amina and Kayo, about his desire to help the food pantry. Do you guys ever think about what it's like to be hungry? Carlos asked. We stop at the end of the paragraph and we guide them back to those 4 questions. Question number 1. And now we are only referring to information that is in paragraph 2. So let's do that now. So question number 1, who are the characters? And in paragraph 2, we have 2 new characters, Amina and Kayo. No other characters. Question number 2, what is the setting? Is there a new setting being introduced to the reader? At lunch. This is an opportunity for us to introduce the concept of drawing an inference. It says at lunch, he's with his friends. We can conclude or we can infer that they are in a cafeteria. So we can write that down. Any other setting information? No. So we move on to the 3rd question. What is the challenge? Is there a new challenge being introduced to the reader? And the answer is no. So we move on to question number 4. Is there a new response to the challenge? So we can reread or call on students to see what they can recall from the reading to get a response to question number 4. And the response is a continuation of what was mentioned in paragraph 1. He shares his desire to help. And now we have answered question number 4. And the process continues with paragraph number 3. Not really, Kayo said, as he bit into a huge turkey sandwich, brimming with lettuce and dripping with sliced tomatoes. Besides his sandwich, Kayo had an apple, 2 carrots, and a box of raisins. And we go back to our questions. Question number 1. In paragraph 3, who are the characters? So we can reread and have a conversation about paragraph 3. and there are no new characters. No new information needs to be noted down. Is there a new setting? No new setting. Therefore, we move on to question 3. Any new challenge being introduced to the reader? And paragraph 3. And there is no new challenge. Question 4, is there a response? There is no response. So this process continues throughout the story. Paragraph 4. So now we read paragraph 4 with our students. I guess I've never stopped to think that some people don't have enough to eat, Amina said. But how can we help? We refer back to the 4 questions and we repeat the process. Who are the characters? No new characters. What is the setting? No new setting. Any new challenge? Well, here we can write some new information because in sentence 1, it says, I guess I've never stopped to think that some people don't have enough to eat. So that can be part of the challenge, that people don't have enough to eat. And that is why they need donations. So just note that down. Some people do not have enough to eat. And we continue the process. Question number 4. Is there a response? And we do have a response. Amina said, but how can we help? So we can write that down. They are thinking of a way to help. And now we are done with question number 4. Let's move on. After school, Carlos helped his parents put away groceries. He told them about the sign in the food pantry window. Carlos's mom saw him eyeing the boxes of rice pasta and cans of sauces in the cupboard. She took out a box of rice. We can share some of our food, she said. We stopped there and we continued the process with our guiding questions. Who are the characters in this paragraph? And here they are introducing Carlos's parents. So we can write that down. Carlos's parents. Also, we asked, what is the setting? And we now know that they are in the kitchen. In Carlos's house. And we move on to question number 3. What is the challenge? So is there a new challenge being introduced to the reader in this paragraph? And after having a discussion, after rereading if we have to, we come to the conclusion that there is no new challenge in this paragraph. So we move on to the response. And the response is mentioned here in the final sentence. We can share some of our food. So the mother has offered a response to the challenge that they identified earlier in the story. So we can write that down. Mom offers to share their food. And now we are done with the 4 questions. We move on to the next paragraph. That night, Carlos looked at the box of rice. He mulled over ways to accumulate even more food. Suddenly, an idea came to him. I've got it, he shouted. My social studies class can organize a food drive and get the whole school involved. We stop at the end of the paragraph and we repeat the process. Who are the characters? And now we have, let's see if we have a new character. No new characters. What is the setting? No new setting. Any new challenge? No new challenge. How about a response to the challenge? Yes. There we do. There we have some information to add. Carlos wants to hold a food drive. And now we move on to the next paragraph. And here is an example of when we can tell our students that because this is a 1-sentence paragraph, that we can read 2 paragraphs in this situation. There is no need to stop at the end of 1 sentence. So we will read this and 1 additional paragraph before we stop and continue with the process of asking ourselves those guiding questions. The next day, he told his idea to his social studies teacher, Mrs. Gomez, who thought it would make a terrific class project. After the first bow, Carlos stood in front of the class and described the sign he had seen. Then he held up the box of rice he had brought from home. This box is just a start, he said. Imagine how much food we can collect if we hold a food drive. And now we can continue the process of asking ourselves these 4 guiding questions. Who are the characters? Any new characters in this paragraph? And the answer is no. And as we continue with the process, we are explaining to our students how we are not always going to have new information to add. There are going to be paragraphs where we may answer 1 question, or we may answer no questions. And that is okay, we move on. But we want them to get into the habit of asking themselves these 4 questions anytime they are reading literature. So there is no new characters. There are no new characters in that paragraph. Is there a new setting? Yes, and the new setting is the classroom. He stood in front of the class. So just write that down. Classroom. Is there a new challenge? And the answer is no. Is there a response? And the response is a continuation of what we already wrote in regards to the food drive. So we can have the conversation with our students, and if they choose, they can rewrite the food drive, or we can move on. And why can we move on? Or why is that an option? It's an option because we identified that response already, a food drive. And now we are ready to move on to the final paragraph of the story. So we will read this paragraph and we will stop and continue the process. Carlos and his classmates went to work creating eye-catching posters and setting up a display table. By the end of the week, donated cans and packages covered the table and tumbled onto the floor. The food drive was a big success. Carlos had found a way to help people in need. And now we are done with our story and done with that second read. But we need to finish the note-taking process with this final piece of information. So let's do that. Question 1. Who are the characters? We do have some new characters, the classmates. So we can write that down, classmates. Any other new characters? No. So I'm going to have to backstep and apologize because I forgot to write Mrs. Gomez down. She is a new character. So we should have wrote her down. I'm sorry, we should have wrote her name down at the end of that paragraph. I apologize for that, but we will write that down now. Mrs. Gomez. And now, the final paragraph. We wrote down the classmates. Is there a new setting? There is no new setting. Is there a new challenge? There is no new challenge. And now the final question, is there a response to the challenge that was identified? So we need to look back to our challenges that were identified, food donations needed because some people do not have enough to eat. So now we have the final response to the problem. And that was, or that is, the food drive. Food drive was successful. And that was the response to the problem. And now we are done with our note taking. And now we will have to have a conversation with our students about the information we have in our notes. And that information will guide us to addressing or meeting the standard. After our conversation of this information, we will be able to determine the theme from details in the text, including how characters in a story respond to challenges. And how will we demonstrate that we determine this? We will do that through a summary. So thank you for being with me today. I look forward to seeing you soon. And we will continue with episode 3 at another date. As always, enjoy reading. Thank you.